going to risk it, and I'll try and keep an eye on the screen, and if he eats my phone, sorry, I'll have to pause it and stop such activities, but we're live, we're recording, and somebody tell me if he's doing anything. What are we doing? Willing man, minus 45, and counting. He had seen an intersection a mile back, and Richards left the woods there, making his way awkwardly down the gravel bank between the woods and the road. He sat there, like a man who had given up trying to hook a ride and has decided to enjoy the warm autumn sun instead. He let the first two cars go by. Both of them held two men. He figured the odds were too high. But when the third one approached the stop sign, he got up. The closing in feeling was back. This whole area had to be hot, no matter how far Parkins had gotten. The next car could be the police, and that would be the ball game. It was a woman in her car. She was alone. She would not look at him. Hitchhikers were distasteful, thus to be ignored. He ripped the passenger door open and was in the car before it was accelerating again. He was he was picked up and thrown sideways, one hand holding desperately to the door pin, his foot dragging. The thumping hiss of brakes as the car swerved wildly. What? Who? You can't! Richards pointed a gun at her, knowing he must look grotesque close up, like a man who had been run through a meat grinder. The fierce image would work for him. He dragged his foot in and slammed the door, gun never swerving. She was dressed for town and wore blue wraparound sunglasses. Good looking from what he could see. Wheel it, Richard said. She did the predictable, slammed both feet on the brake and screamed. Richards was thrown forward, his bad ankle scraping excruciatingly. The air car juddered to a stop. He'd better not be. Sorry, I did warn. All right. It's always within like the first couple of pages as well. Right, give me 2 seconds, I'll be back. Oh, sorry. That's him now. Where'd we get to? The air car juddered to a stop on the shoulder, 50 feet beyond the intersection. You're that. You're... R- 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 Ben Richards. Take your hands off the wheel. Put them in your lap. She did, shuddering convulsively. She would not look at him, afraid, Richard supposed, that she would be turned to stone. What's your name, ma'am? Uh, Amelia Williams. Don't shoot me. Don't kill me. I... You have my money. For God's sake, don't kill me. Shh, Richard said soothingly. Shush, shush. When she quietened a little, he said, I won't try to change your mind about me, Mrs. Williams. Is it Mrs.? Yes, she said automatically. But I have no intention of harming you. Do you understand that? Yes, she said, suddenly eager. You want the car. They got your friend, and now you need a car. You can take it. It's insured. I won't even tell. I swear I won't. I'll say someone stole it from the parking lot. We'll talk about it, Richard said. Begin to drive. Go up Route 1, and we'll talk about it. Are there roadblocks? No. Yes. Hundreds of them. They'll catch you. Don't lie, Mrs. Williams, okay? She began to drive, erratically at first, then more smoothly. The motion seemed to soothe her. Richards repeated his question about the roadblocks. Around Lewiston, she said with frightened unhappiness. That's where they go. They got that other mag fellow. How far is that? 30 miles or more. Parkis had gotten farther than Richards would have dreamed. Will you rate me? Amelia Richards asked so suddenly that Richards almost barked with laughter. No, he said, then matter-of-factly. I'm married. I saw her, she said, with a kind of smirking doubtfulness that made Richards want to smash her. Eat garbage, bitch. Kill a rat that was hiding in the bread box. Kill it with a whisk broom. And then see how you talk about my wife. Can I get off here? She asked pleadingly, and he felt a trifle sorry for her again. No, he said. You're my protection, Mrs. Williams. I have to get to Voightfield, in a place called Derry. You're going to see I get there. That's 150 miles, she wailed. Someone else told me 100. They were wrong. You'll never get through to there. I might, Richard said, and then looked at her. And so might you, if you play it right. She began to tremble again, but said nothing. Her attitude was that of a woman waiting to be woken up. -44, and counting. They travelled north through autumn, burning like a torch. The trees were not dead this far north, murdered by the big, poisonous smokes of Portland, Manchester, and Boston. They were all hues of yellow, red, and brilliant starburst purple. They awoke in Richards an aching feeling of melancholy. It was a feeling that he'd never suspected his emotions could harbour only 2 weeks before. In another month the snow would fly and cover it all. Things ended in fall. She seemed to sense his mood and said nothing. The drive filled with silence between them and lulled them. They passed over the water at Yarmouth. Then there were only woods and trailers and miserable poverty shacks with outhouses tacked on the sides. Yet one could always spot the freebie cable attachment bolted on below a sagging, paneless window, or beside a hinge-smashed door, winking and heliographing in the sun, until they entered Freeport. There were 3 police cruisers parked just outside the town, the cops meeting in some kind of roadside conference. The woman sniffed like a wire. Stiffened like a wire. I was like, that doesn't make sense. Her face desperately pale, but Richards felt calm. They passed the police without notice, and she slumped. If they had been monitoring traffic, they would have been on us like a shot, Richards said casually. Might as well paint Ben Richards is in this car on your forehead in the day glow. Why can't you let me go? She burst out, and in the same breath, have you got a J? Rich folks blowed oaks, he thought, and a bubble of ironic laughter as he shook his head. You're laughing at me? She said, stung. You've got some nerve, don't you, you cowardly little murderer? Scaring me half out of my life, probably planning to kill me the way you killed those 2 poor boys in Boston. There was always a fool gross of those poor boys, Richard said, ready to kill me. That's their job. Killing for pay, ready to do anything for money, wanting to overturn the country. Why don't you find some decent work? Because you're too lazy. Your kind spit in the face of anything that's decent. Are you decent? Richards asked. Yes, she stormed. Isn't that why you picked on me? Because I was defenseless and decent? So you could use me, drag me down to your level, and then laugh about it? If you're so decent, how come you've $6,000 to buy this fancy car, while my little girl dies of flu? What? She said, startled. Her mouth started to open, and she closed it with a snap. You're an enemy of the network, she said. It says so on the freebie. I saw some of those disgusting things you did. You know what's disgusting? Richards asked, lighting a cigarette from the back of the dashboard. I'll tell you. It's disgusting to get blackballed because you don't want to work in a General Atomics job that's going to make you sterile. It's disgusting to sit home and watch your wife earning the grocery money on her back. It's disgusting to know the network is killing millions of people every year with air pollutants when they could be manufacturing nose filters for $6 a throw. You lie, she said. Her knuckles had gone white on the wheel. When this is over, Richards said, you can go back to your nice split-level duplex and light up a doke and get stoned and love the way your new silverware sparkles in the highboy. No one fighting rats with broom handles in your neighborhood or shifting the back stoop because the toilet don't work. I met a little 5-year-old girl with lung cancer. How's that for disgusting? What do? Stop, she screamed at him. You talk dirty. That's right, he said, watching the countryside flow by. Hopelessness filled him like water. There was no base of communications with these beautiful chosen ones. They existed where the air was rare. He had a sudden, raging urge to make this woman pull over, knock her sunglasses to the gravel, drag her through the dirt, and make her eat stone. River, jump on her, knock out her teeth into the air like startled digits, strip her nude, and ask her if she was beginning to see the big picture that one runs 24 hours a day on Channel 1, where the national anthem never plays before the sign-off. That's right, he muttered. Dirty talking old me. Minus 43, and counting. They got farther than they had any right to, Richards figured. They got all the way to a pretty town in the sea called Camden, over 100 miles from where they had hitched, or where he'd hitched a ride with Amelia Williams. Listen, he said as they were entering Augusta, the state capital. There's a good chance they'll sniff us out here, and I've no interest in killing you. Dig it? Yes, she said with bright haste. You need a hostage? Or with bright hate. You need a hostage? Right. So if a cop pulls out behind us, you pull over immediately. You open your door and lean out. Just lean. Your fanny is not to leave the seat. Understand? Yes. You holler, Benjamin Richards is holding me hostage. If you don't give him free passage, he will kill me. And you think that will work? It better, he said with tense mockery. It's your ass. She bit her lip and said nothing. It'll work, I think. There'll be a dozen freelance cameramen around in no time, hoping to get some games money, or even the Zapruder award itself. With that kind of publicity, they'll have to play it straight. Sorry you won't get to see us go all out in a hail of bullets, so they can talk about you sanctimoniously as Ben Richards' last victim. Why do you say these things? She burst out. He didn't reply, only slid down in a seat until the top of his head showed and waited for the blue lights in the rear-view mirror. But there were no blue lights in Augusta. They continued for another hour and a half, skirting the ocean as the sun began to wester, catching little glints and peaks of the water, across the fields and beyond the bridges, through the heavy firs. It was past 2 o'clock when they rounded the bend, not far from Camden Town line, and saw a roadblock. 2 police cars were parked on either side of the road. 2 cops were checking, a farmer, in his old pickup truck, and waving it through. Go another 200 feet, then stop, Richard said. Just do it the way I told you. She was pallid, but seemingly in control. Resigned, maybe. She applied the brakes evenly, and the car came to a neat stop in the middle of the road, 50 feet from the checkpoint. The trooper holding the cardboard waved her forward imperiously. When she didn't come, he glanced inquiringly at his companion. A third cop, who had been sitting inside one of those cruisers with his feet up, suddenly grabbing the hand mic under the dash and began to speak rapidly. Here we go, Richards thought. Oh God, here we go. Minus 42, and counting. The day was very bright. The constant rain of Harding seemed light years away, and everything was very sharp and clearly defined. The troopers' shadows might have been drawn with black crayolas. They were unhooking the narrow straps that crossed their gun butts. Mrs. Williams swung open the door and leaned out. "Don't shoot, please," she said. For the first time, Richards realized how cultured her voice was, how rich. She might have been in the drawing room, except for the pallid knuckles and the fluttering, bird-like pulse at her throat. With the door open, he could smell the fresh, invigorating odor of pine and timothy grass. "Come out of the car with your hands over your head," the cop said, with a clipboard. He sounded like a well-programmed machine. General Atomics Model 6925-A9. Richard thought, I could have said anything, but I gave you the correct number. The Hicksville Trooper, 16 PSM, iridium batteries included, comes in white only. You and your passenger, ma'am. We see him. My name is Amelia Williams, she said very clearly. I can't get out, as you ask. Benjamin Richards is holding me hostage. If you don't give him free passage, he says he'll kill me. The two cops looked at each other, said something barely perceptible that passed between them. Richards, with his nerves strung up to the point where he seemed to be operating with a seventh sense, caught it. "Drive!" he screamed. She stared around at him, bewildered. "But they won't." The clipboard clattered to the road. The two cops fell into a kneeling posture, and almost simultaneously, guns out, gripped in their right hands, left hands holding at the wrists, each one with a solid white line. The sheets of flimsy on the cardboard fluttered errantly. Richards tromped his bad foot on Amelia Williams's right shoe, his lips drawing back into a tragedy mask of pain as the broken ankle grated. The air car ripped forward. The next moment, two hollow punching noises struck the car, making it vibrate. A moment later, the windshield blew in, shattering them both, or splattering them both with bits of safety glass. She threw both hands up to protect her face, and Richards leaned savagely against her, swinging the wheel. They shot through the gap between the V'd cars, with scarcely a flint on the rear deck. He caught a crazy glimpse of the troopers whirling to fire again. Then his whole attention was on the road. They mounted a rise, and then there was one more hollow thun as the bullet smashed a hole through the trunk. The car began to fishtail, and Richards hung on, whipping the wheel in diminishing arcs, and realized dimly that Williams was screaming. "Steer!" he shouted at her. "Steer, goddammit! Steer! Steer!" His hands groped reflexively for the wheel and found it. He let go and battered the dark glasses away from her eyes with an open-handed blow. They hung on in one ear for a moment and then dropped off. "Pull over. They shot at us." Her voice began to rise. "They shot at us. They shot. Pull over." The scream of sirens rose behind them. She pulled over clumsily, sending the car around in a shuddering half-turn as they spurned gravel into the air. "I told them, and they tried to kill us," she said wonderingly. "They tried to kill us." But he was out already, out and hopping clumsily, back the way that he had come, gun out. He lost his balance and fell heavily, scraping both knees. When the first cruiser came over the rise, he was in a sitting position on the shoulder of the road, the pistol held firmly at shoulder level. The car was doing 80 easily, and still accelerating. Some back-road cowboy at the wheel with too much engine up front and visions of glory in his eyes. They perhaps saw him, perhaps tried to stop. Didn't matter. There were no bulletproof tires on these. The one closest to Richards exploded as if it had dynamite in it. The cruiser took off like a big-ass bird, gunning across the shoulder in a howling, uncontrolled flight. It crashed into a hole of a huge elm. The driver's side door flew open. The driver rammed through the windshield like a torpedo, and 30 yards before crashing into the pucker brush. The second car came almost as fast and took Richards 4 shots to find a tire. 2 slugs splattered the sand next to the spot. This one slid in, a smoking half-turn, and rolled 3 times, spraying glass and metal. Richard struggled to his feet, looked down and saw his shirt darkening slowly just above the belt. He hopped back toward the car and then dropped on his face as the second cruiser exploded, spewing shrapnel above and around him. He got up, panting and making strange whimpering noises in his mouth. His side had begun to throb in slow, aching cycles. She could have gotten away, perhaps, but she made no effort. She was staring transfixed at the burning police car in the road. When Richards got in, she shrank from him. You killed them. You killed those men. They tried to kill me. You too. Drive. Fast. They did not try to kill me. Drive. So she drove. The mask of a well-to-do young Hausfrau on her way back from the market now hung in tatters and shreds. Beneath it was something from the cave, something with twitching lips and rolling eyes. Perhaps it had been there all along. They drove about 5 miles, then came to a roadside with an air station. Pull in, Richards said. -41, and counting. Get out. No. He jammed the gun against her right breast, and she whimpered. Don't. Please. I'm sorry, but there's no more time to play with you. Get out. She got out, and he slid after her. Let me lean on you. He slung an arm around her shoulders and pointed the gun at the telephone booth beside the ice dispenser. They began shuffling toward it, a grotesque 2-man vaudeville team. Richards hopped on his good foot. He felt tired. In his mind, he saw the cars crashing, the body flying like a torpedo, the leaping explosion. Those scenes played over and over, like a continuous loop on a tape. The store's proprietor, an old pal with white hair and scrawny legs, hidden behind a dirty butcher's apron, came out and stared at them with worried eyes. Hey, he said mildly, I don't want you here. I got a family. Go down the road. Please, I don't want no trouble. Go inside, Pop, Richards said. The man went. Richards slid loosely into the booth, breathing through his mouth. I don't know where that came from. Mouth. And fumbled 50 cents into a coin horn. Holding the gun and receiver in one hand, he punched 0. What exchange is this, operator? Rockland, sir. Put me through to the local newsy hookup, please. You may dial that, sir. The number is... You dial it. Do you wish... Just dial it. Yes, sir, she said, unruffled. There were clicks and pops in Richard's ear. Blood had darkened his shirt to a dirty purple colour. He looked away from it. It made him feel ill. Rockland Newsy, a voice in Richard's ear. Freevee tabloid number 6943. This is Ben Richards. There was a long silence, then. Look, maggot, I like a joke as well as the next guy. But this has been a long, hard day. Shut up. You're going to get confirmation of this in 10 minutes, and look outside. You can get it now if you've got a police head radio. Just a second. There was a clunk of a dropping phone on the other end, and a faint wailing sound. When the phone was picked up, the voice was hard and businesslike. with an undercurrent of excitement. "Where are you, fella? Half the cops in the eastern Main just went through Rockland on about 110." Richard craned his neck over the sign of the store. "A place called Gillies-Town Line Store and Air Stop on US 1. You know it?" "Yeah, just. Listen to me, maggot. I didn't call you to give my life story. I got some photos out here." "Photogs out here. Quick, and get this on the air. Red Newsbreak, top. I got a hostage, and her name is Amelia Williams from—" He looked at her. "Falmouth," she said miserably. "From Falmouth. Safe conduct, or I'll kill her." "Jesus, I smell the Pulitzer Prize." "No, you just shit your pants, that's all," Richard said. He felt light-headed. "You get the word out. I want the state pigs to find out everyone knows I'm not alone. 3 of them at the roadblock tried to blow us up." "What happened to the cops?" "I killed them." "All 3? Hot damn!" The voice pulled away from the phone, yelling distantly, "Dickie, open the national cable." "I'm going to kill her if they shoot," Richard said, simultaneously trying to inject sincerity into his voice and to remember all the gangster movies he had seen on the freebie as a kid. "If they want to save this girl, they better let me through." When Richards hung up and hopped clumsily out of the booth, "Help me." She put an arm around him, glancing at the blood. "See what you're getting yourself into?" "Yes." "This is madness. You're going to be killed." "Drive north," he mumbled. "Just drive north." He slid into the car, breathing hard. The world insisted on going in and out. High, atonal music jangled in his ears. She pulled out and onto the road. His blood had smeared on her smart green and black striped blouse. The old man, Gilly, cracked the screen door open and poked out a very old Polaroid camera. He clicked the shutter, pulled the tape, and waited. His face was painted with horror and excitement and delight. In the distance, rising and converging sirens. -40, and counting. They travelled 5 miles before people began running out into their lawns to watch them pass. Many had cameras, and Richards relaxed. "They were shooting at that air caps at the roadblock," she said quietly. "That was a mistake. That's all it was. A mistake. If that maggot was aiming for an air cap, when he put it through the windshield, there must have been a sight on that pistol 3 feet high. It was a mistake." They were entering the residential district of what Richards assumed was Rockland. Summer homes, dirt roads, leading down to beachfront cottages. Breeze in, private road, just me and Patty. Keep out, Elizabeth's Rest. Trespassers will be shot. Cloud high. 5,000 volts. Set a spell. Guard dogs on patrol. Unhealthy eyes and avid faces peered at him from behind the trees, like Cheshire cats. The blare of battery-powered freebies came through the shattered windshield. A crazy, weird air of carnival about everything. "These people," Richard said, "only want to see someone bleed. The more, the better. They would just as soon as it was both of us. Can you believe that? No? Then I salute you." An older man with a silvery barber-shop hair, wearing madras shorts that came over his knees, ran out to the edge of the road. He was carrying a huge camera with a Cobra-like telephoto lens. He began snapping pictures wildly, bending and dipping. His legs were fish-belly white. Richards burst into a sudden bray of laughter that made Amelia jump. "What? He's still got the lens cover on," Richards said. "He's still got—" But laughter overcame him. Cars crowded in the shoulders as they topped a long, slowly rising hill and began to descend towards the clustered town of Rockland itself. Perhaps it had once been a picturesque seacoast fishing village, full of Winslow, Homer men, in yellow rain slickers, who went out in small boats to trap the wily lobster. If so, it was long gone. There was a huge shopping centre on either side of the road, a main street strip of honky-tonks, bars, and auto-shot emporiums. There were neat middle-class homes overlooking the main drag of the heights, and a glowing slum, looking up from the rancid edge of the water. The sea at the horizon was yet unchanged. It glittered a blue and ageless, full of dancing points and nets of light in the late afternoon sun. They began the descent, and there were two police cars parked across the road, their blue lights flick, flick, flicking jaggedly, crazy and out of sync with each other. Parked at an angle on the embankment that was, or parked at an angle on the left embankment was an armoured car with a short, stubby cannon barrel tracking them. "You're done," she said softly, almost regretfully. "Do I have to die too?" "Stop 50 yards from the roadblock and do your stuff," Richards said. He slid down in the seat. A nervous tic stitched his face. She stopped and opened the car door, but did not lean out. The air was dead silent. A hush falls over the crowd, Richards thought ironically. "I'm scared," she said. "Please, I'm so scared." "They won't shoot you," he said. "There are too many people. You can't kill hostages unless no one is watching. Those are the rules of the game." She looked at him for a moment, and he suddenly wished that they could have a cup of coffee together. He would listen carefully to her conversation and stir real cream into his hot drink, her treat, of course. They would discuss the possibilities of social inequality, the way your socks always fall down whenever you're wearing rubber boots, and the importance of being earnest. "Go on, Mrs. Williams," he said with a soft, tense mockery. "The eyes of the world are on you." She leaned out. 6 police cars and another armoured van had pulled up 30 feet behind them, blocking their retreat. He thought, now the only way out is straight up to heaven. And it ends there. Thanks for listening, and apologies, you might have noticed I mumbled something through there. I would have given that, I'd like to give maybe a warning on that then, but it's that kind of book. Maybe you wouldn't be so surprised to come across that sort of terminology, but still nowadays everyone wants their trigger warnings, don't they? I'll see about putting something in the description, but thanks for listening. Hopefully you're not not too scarred, and I'll see you next time.